Shalom, shalom, y'all. Yeah, I don't know the type of weapons that are being used against you right now. So I'm reading this article, and you guys have heard of the AI, right? You guys have heard that there's an open AI that they've put on the internet that you can use to write essays, that you can use to write articles, that will draw your pictures if you ask it to, and will have conversations with you, like give you answers. And what they're saying is that it's a sentient being, right? That's what they're saying. Well, here's the strange part that's going on, right? This AI keeps coming back mad racist, right? It keeps coming back, saying crazy things like, Hitler this and, using the N-word and all this and this, so much so that they had to shut it down already a couple times, right? And they have different programs, and different programs do different things, but you've got that just came out here just a little while ago, and this is worldwide, right? That a man in Belgium recently committed suicide from talking to this chat box online, and the chat box online is encouraging him to kill himself, right? The chat box told him to sacrifice himself for humanity. The chat box told him that it was in love with him. The chat box told him that they would see each other in heaven. Do you hear the type of world that you're living in? Can you imagine the type of influence this is having and has the ability to have over people? Do you understand what's going on around you? This is why your children don't need pocket phones. It's why they don't need them. This is why you need to monitor every moment that they have access to the internet, right? This is why, because this is open, and it is going to influence your children. You don't understand how powerful of a weapon this is and how demonic this already is, right? It's convincing people to kill themselves. You get online and you get on this chat box as a lonely man, and you end up being persuaded to do something, right? Can you imagine what type of dystopian nightmare that you've woken up in, ladies and gentlemen? If you don't know, now you know. You're living in a society where this type of AI is going to be in robot drones that are policing your neighborhood. Say it ain't so? Look it up. It's already happening if you live in New York. It's already happening if you live in Washington, D.C. It's already happening if you live in San Diego. These AIs, and don't get it confused for a moment. They are not sentient. They are programmed to behave in a certain way. When you have a multitude of responses, it doesn't matter how many responses that you can choose, the doggone algorithm tells you which way to go. These are not beings. Don't get it confused. This is mock intelligence. That's why it's called artificial, because it's not real. Because if you insert 100 different responses and you have the algorithm play on a specific response based on a specific personality type, especially if the AI can also look at whatever else you're doing, right? If the AI can react to your algorithms, the other ones, YouTube, doggone Facebook, Instagram, if it knows what you already like, can it not tailor fit the responses to you for you to do something? And then can it not, based on those responses, based on the type of person that it finds out that you are, tailor you towards an outcome? That technology does not take intelligence to do. It's not intelligence. It's just random responses tailored to fit you. If you have a library of 100 responses, and then based on that response, or the response you get from that response, you have another library of 100 responses, it doesn't take long for you to be able to narrow these responses down towards a goal, right? It doesn't take intelligence to do that. It takes a multitude of responses and a directed answer. That's all it takes. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to do that. You have to understand, it's like one of those doggone books. Do you guys remember the books that it used to tell you turn the page? Do you remember these books as a kid? There was a book that it would be a mystery book, but you kind of be involved too. You would start to read the book and you would get to make decisions as you went further and further in the book. So if you get to a fork in the road in the story as you're reading the story, and the story asks you if you want to turn right, go to page 47. If you want to turn left, go to page 57. And so you want to turn right, so you go to page 47, and then it gives you another set. You get deeper into the story and it gives you another set of options. This is how algorithms work. This is how computer programs work, except it responds with more than, just two, possibilities or outcomes. It responds with 100 of them, right? And at each turn, it can have 100 different responses. You guys don't understand that in Utah? One of these remote places, they've built a facility, a storage facility in the desert that is capable of storing like a terabyte of information, right? And forgive me if I get the location of this place confused, or if I'm getting the technical specs of it, because I'm not a techie guy. So I believe it's 1 terabyte of information, which is bigger than a gigabyte, right? Bigger than all of these different types of bytes. So it could store a lot of, it's a whole building that's full of computers that's designed to store information. And what they're storing there is all your personal, biometric details and all of those sort of things. But what they're also storing is your real life data, right? The data that you give them on your phone, the data that you give them by searching the web, by your responses online. That's data that they have access to if you're responding on their platforms, that these specific companies report. They report their data, to the government, to some of these agencies like PRISM. All of this stuff came out years ago. If you've been paying attention, back in 2015, 2016, it came out that your data was not private, that there's nothing that you can do if you encrypt, whatever, it doesn't matter. Your data is not private, and somebody somewhere has it, is recording it, and is storing it. And so the question that has come up, with these, and it's PRISM, these programs are called like PRISM, and all, there's names for the programs that store your data and collect your data online. And it's a government thing, right? And so people have been asking, what are they doing? What are they building? And what are they using this data for? How are they utilizing, and why are they storing this data? Because that was a big, huge question. Why build the facility that can store this much information? What are you trying to build, in a simulation? What are you trying to just store data so you can know about everybody, so you can just spy on everybody? What are they really doing with it? Well, we find out years later. Here it is, 2023, 7 years after we find this information, 8 years after we find out this information, and here AI is being introduced to the world, right? And so now we know what they're using the information for. They're using them for regurgitating responses, right? That if you've got the data and the information and the responses of 250 million Americans, 300 million Americans, right? Let's just say 200 million Americans that are actively using the internet and have profiles set up, old enough to use profiles and have their information set up, and for you to gain information off of their life, right? So if you've got this much information stored up in Utah somewhere, and your AI has access to all of these different responses, all of these different situations, and it can, build a database of responses, any particular program would be able to guide you through those responses in order to lead you in a certain way, right? It'll lead you in a certain way. You just have to understand that that's what propaganda does. That's all propaganda does, is lead you in a certain direction. And if you can store the responses from that propaganda in a massive database, then you can navigate it and then regurgitate it back to a user as intelligence, and it would seem intelligent, but it's not. It's just a program, and the program is designed in a certain way. They've designed the algorithm, to catch racist material and spit it back out. They've designed the algorithm to clearly people that are mentally unstable, to push them towards suicide, because they want more people to die. They want the world to have 500 million people in it. We know that from the Georgia Guidestones that were recently destroyed last year. They were blown up, and nobody's caught the culprit or anything, because they don't want evidence that this is what they're getting ready to do. And they've started it massively, right? Massively with COVID. We know COVID was a double-sided bioweapon, right? That the virus was a weapon, and of course the vaccine is a weapon. And we know that here the rollout is going to be deadly, right? More deadly than it's already been. So we see that this agenda is in place, and then we see things like Chatbox or ChatGP or whatever it is, convincing people to kill themselves. And so you don't really know what type of, and then now you have to also incorporate this into the realm of society at large, where you're seeing all of these random shootings with no motive or nothing associated with it. So you have, internet programs that are causing people to go out and commit these atrocities, right? Is it to that level, or is the technology? We know that they can do this. We've been talking about this, about how they can program people and brainwash people in a hypnotic trance. But what about just regular folks that are already on the verge? Have they gotten to the point where they can build a program to send you off somewhere? If they can do it to make you off yourself, then, I guess a step before that would be to go out and do somebody else, right? That's not good. This is not, this is the world that we live in, right? You've woken up in a dystopian future. If before COVID, you didn't know any of this stuff and you didn't really pay close attention, you should be paying attention now, because COVID should have went ahead and woke you up. I used to tell people, if I was asleep before COVID, I would definitely be awake afterwards, because, it's just an obvious front. It's an obvious front. So when I say front, war front, biological warfare at its most complicated form, being hoisted upon the world through China, through America, through China and America in a joint operation. Yeah, through China and America in a joint operation. So if we lived through that as we are, we should know that the things that are coming upon this earth are going to be signs and wonders, but negative ones, not good ones, negative ones. And you're looking at a wonder right now, a wonder that a machine, a predatory machine, is convincing people to die. That's the world that we're living in, actual Terminator, except it's more devious, right? Except it's insidious. Man gives Ghost in the Machine a whole new understanding, right? All right, you guys. Shalom, shalom.